an example, just one example, because there are many examples. This is an example of how disequilibrium leads to equilibrium. Okay? I want you to pay attention on capital Y, because that is the output or the GDP, because most macroeconomists always talk about GDP. So pay attention on capital Y. Capital Y is basically output of GDP. Okay. Now, let's assume the economy now is in recession, meaning Y is very low, right? And the growth of Y is not only low, in some cases even negative. If you are in a recession, then growth of Y is negative. So imagine that is our starting point, and that is our disequilibrium starting point. So what does macroeconomics tell you if that is the case? Well, one example that macroeconomists can do is to increase the amount of money supply. That is delta M. So start with the upper left. There's a delta M, and I'm even giving you an example of the size of the increase, 10%. So again, when you are in a recession, macroeconomists will suggest you increase the money supply by 10%. So as a result, if you look at the chart, start with the upper left, M goes up. Okay, but if M goes up, then M over P, P is price, by the way. So M over P will also go up. Remember, we are in the short run, so in the short run, P does not change. So if P does not change, but M goes up, M over P will go up. Right? Now, what is M over P? Well, the macroeconomic terms in the textbook, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, we are using a textbook, Macroeconomics by Oliver Blanchard, using the 7th edition. Okay. Anyway, so in the textbook, in Oliver Blanchard book, M over P is called real balance. That's the term that macroeconomists use. Okay. So let's start again. When money supply increase, the real balance also increase. If real balance increase, we will show you next week, interest rate will go down. Lower left I refers to interest rate, but that is nominal interest rate, okay, not the real interest rate. Nominal interest rate goes down, and if the nominal interest rate goes down, then output will go up. Remember, our starting point is recession, and that's why we want the output goes up, because recession means output goes down. So now we want to have output goes up. Okay. Now, if output goes up, unemployment, which is U, will go down, right? Because if the economy is growing fast, a lot of job created, and less number of the unemployed workers, right? Now, before we continue down, let's go up first. You see there's an arrow from nominal interest rate to ER. ER is the exchange rate. Okay. So if interest rate goes down, then the exchange rate tends to depreciate. Okay. In Indonesian, it's called melemah. So rupiah melemah. That's depreciate. Now, why I give the arrow up, going up? Because that exchange rate is defined as the local currency per foreign currency. Let's say rupiah per US dollar. So if rupiah originally is 10,000, and then because interest rate goes down, rupiah become 14,000. That means increase, right? From 10,000 to 14,000. But in the term of exchange rate, that means depreciate, melemah. So if rupiah move from 10,000 to 14,000, that is the reason I use the arrow up, basically. Okay. Now, if the exchange rate depreciate, that will be a good news for export, right? Because our export products becomes cheaper and that's why export goes up. Now, if export goes up, then the net export, which is NEX, will also go up. Okay, meaning if there is any deficit, the deficit will narrow down. Okay, if it is surplus, the surplus will widen basically. Now, if export goes up, okay, so NEX goes up, there are two effects. Number one is it will have a positive effect on output. So that means increase in the output is caused by two forces. Number one is the lowering of the interest rate itself. Number two is the increasing amount of export. Okay. So that's one effect. And the second effect is that if the deficit narrow down or the surplus goes up, then the foreign capital inflows, and the symbol that I use is capital F there, then foreign capital inflows will go down. Okay, because you will learn during the semester about the balance of payment. Okay? So if in the balance of payment the deficit gets bigger, then Indonesia needs a lot of capital inflow. But if the deficit is getting smaller, then Indonesia needs less capital inflow. Now, in this case, in this story, I was telling you earlier that export increase, that means the deficit is getting smaller. Okay? And if the deficit getting smaller, then the amount of capital inflow, or F, is going down. Now, if the capital inflow is going down, that itself also affects the exchange rate. And that exchange rate will depreciate further. So again, this is another example of exchange rate movement or kurs rupiah over US dollar can be affected by two things. One is the interest rate, and the second is capital inflow. Okay, so you see that there is a dynamics there on the upper side. The reason why macroeconomists are dealing with the upper part is because, as I said earlier, there is no economy that is closed. Any economy in any countries in the world is open economy. This is the reason why I personally do not like any class on macroeconomics start by explaining the closed economy, and then after, I don't know, 10 meetings, they started to introduce open economy. To me, it doesn't make sense because in reality, there is no closed economy in the world. That's why from the beginning, we have to deal with an open economy. And the upper part of that chart is basically talking about the open economy, exchange rate, net export, capital influence. Okay. So let's continue now. Now you have output increase. That's good, right? Because remember, our starting point is recession. So once the output increase and unemployment goes down, then we move to the medium run. Remember what is changing in the medium run? Price. In the short run, price does not change. But in the medium run, price changes. If the output increase, price will also tend to increase. If the unemployment decrease, price will also increase. By the way, the relation between unemployment and price in macroeconomics, it's known as Phillips curve relation. So basically, Phillips curve relation is a relation showing the negative relation between unemployment and price. What I mean by negative is that if unemployment goes up, price goes down. If unemployment goes down, price goes up. All right. So now let's continue. Price goes up now. If price goes up in any countries, macroeconomists will suggest you better do something with regards to the price goes up. But before you do that, you have to look at what happened with the real interest rate. Remember, so far we are only talking about nominal interest rate, I, right? But what happened with the real interest rate? If I does not change, remember, if you go up again, back to the earlier story, I goes down, right? So if I goes down and nothing changes after that, but price goes up, then the real interest rate, which is lower R, will go down. Because it's a ratio. Real is basically a ratio between nominal and the price. So if the numerator of the ratio goes down and the denominator, which is price, goes up, then that ratio will go down. So that's what happened with the real interest rate goes down. And if the real interest rate goes down, you will see next week when we start explaining about the aggregate demand, the real balance, remember M over D is called real balance, will also go down. Now, if the real balance goes down, then the nominal interest rate will have to go down. So remember that question earlier, what does macroeconomics do if price goes up? Well, macroeconomics will increase the interest rate if the price goes up. Okay? This is what Bank Indonesia is always doing, right? If there's an inflation, price goes up, then Bank Indonesia will tend to increase the interest rate, and vice versa. If the price goes down, then the interest rate will be lower. But here we are talking about price goes up, and that's why the nominal interest rate has to go up. Okay? Now, the rest, after interest rate goes up, the rest, you should be able to tell the story yourself now, because I already gave you an example earlier above. What happened when the interest goes down? What happened with the output? What happened with the exchange rate? What happened with the net export? What happened with the capital flows? So, you can tell the stories here, okay? Now, why don't I get a volunteer? Raise your hand who's willing to be volunteer to enter or to continue the story, end the story here. What happened? So we are now in the increase of the I, increase of the interest rate, nominal interest rate. What happened the next one? Just refer to this chart. Okay. Anybody is willing to raise your hand? Yes.
Yes. So when the nominal interest rate goes up, then the exchange rate will appreciate.
Yes.
And when the exchange rate appreciates, it will affect the export-import performance, in which the net export will decrease, and as a result, the total output will end up goes down.
Okay, and then
back to
because you haven't talked about the capital flows yet. You see, there's F there.
Oh yeah. So when the net export goes down, then the country needs more capital inflow from outside from inside, and when that happens, it also affects the exchange rate as well.
Yes. So if there's more capital inflow, exchange rate tends to appreciate more, right?
Yes.
Okay. But essentially, you're right. If the NAX goes down, then the output will go down, essentially. So I forgot to put, let me change slightly here, because actually I was supposed to put here. Okay, so basically that's it, basically. So basically, once you have the NAX down and output goes down, then you see there's a big arrow going up again, right? Because output goes down, is similar to the initial condition with this disequilibrium, with this recession, correct? So the story is continuous, the same story coming back. Now that is what I meant by the story of macroeconomics is a story from disequilibrium to equilibrium and then back to disequilibrium, equilibrium, and so on. So that's macroeconomics. So basically, you know now what are you going to deal for the next 14 weeks. The whole semester is all talking about this, basically. The story about disequilibrium to equilibrium and back to disequilibrium to equilibrium again. Okay. Now, after we deal with short run,
just a quick question.
Yes.
So, I think in the previous slide we regarding the aggregate demand. So we use aggregate demand model to analyze the short run macroeconomic effect, right? So I think throughout our what we've learned so far, so is that let's say when aggregate demand increase to a lot of factors. So when aggregate demand shifts to the right, so GDP increases, and then the y-axis stands for the price level increases. So when price level increases, it does not necessarily mean that the price itself increases. Is that correct? So I just want to clear that up, because that's what we've learned so far.
I guess it's not clear to me the last two sentences.
Oh, okay.
So price goes up.
Okay, so when aggregate demand shifts to the right, so that means the real GDP increases, right? Also in the y-axis stands for the price level in the aggregate demand curve. But you said previously that in the short run price does not increase, right? So when the price level increases, it does not necessarily mean that price increases. Is that correct?
Correct. Now, that's a good question. Remember, you are already mixing the short run and medium run, right? So that means you cannot stop the story only in the short run, because the moment you talk about the price increase, that's the story of medium run. That's no longer the story of the short run, because in the short run, price does not increase. Okay, so if that's what you meant, then you are right. Yes. So when you combine the short run and medium run, then basically, if the aggregate demand shift to the right, meaning output goes up, price also goes up. But that is a combination of short run and medium run.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So now that once we pass the short run and medium run, then we go to the long run.